Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics, a Catholic women's talk show podcast. I'm Stacy, one of your hosts, and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Alicia.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Lauren.
Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics. Today we are continuing our series on how I met my spouse. We already listened to Lauren's stories and Annie's stories, and if you're just coming in, those are our last two episodes, so you're more than welcome to go back and listen to those. And this week we're going to be hearing Stacy's story, which is me. So my story with my husband is I have to go back a little further because there was a lot of stuff that kind of led up to him, I suppose. I didn't really date in high school or anything like that. And then my first boyfriend in college, we actually got engaged. And we were really good friends. And one of the things that we had talked about beforehand was we weren't sure if we wanted to date because we didn't want anything to mess up our friendship. And so we kind of made like a promise to each other that even if we broke up someday that we wouldn't stop our friendship. We kept that promise. We're still really good friends. We'll message each other, and he was in my wedding and I went to his wedding, but we were engaged, and there were some circumstances that happened or that we weren't. And, but it's always kind of interesting to look at the things that happened after that, because while I was trying to get over that breakup, that's when I decided to go to camp for the first time. And this particular boyfriend at the time when we were engaged, he's Lutheran and I'm Catholic. And so we break up, and then I go off to camp. And this is where I have my, I guess, in my conversion or my devotion towards the Eucharist really became strong. And so there was this really, like we always talk about how God uses things, to get us, he doesn't necessarily cause things, but he uses those things in our lives. Mm-hmm. So that was one moment where he used a situation to bring me closer to him. And so my devotion for the Eucharist really became very intense after that encounter. And that boyfriend and I, we were together for 2 years. And then later I started dating another guy who wasn't sure if he wanted to get married or go to seminary, and he kind of went back and forth on things. And so we dated, and then I didn't see myself marrying him. I knew that that's what he was looking for, and a girlfriend was somebody that he could see himself marrying. And so I broke up with him, but then later we got back together, and he's kind of the person who introduced me to Eucharistic adoration. So, because that was our first date. Our first date, it was kind of funny because he goes, I'm going to ask you something nobody's probably asked you to do on a first date before. I hope you are okay with it. I was like, what is he going to ask me? And he was like, would you mind going to adoration with me? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. I've never been before. I hadn't really been before. So he's who introduced me to adoration, which in an adoration, this is where God has spoken to me so many times. And so this is where that devotion started. So the first boyfriend got me, towards the Eucharist, and then my second boyfriend, Eucharistic adoration. And then we broke up. He ended up getting married and has a wonderful wife. And so, again, everything, as it should be. But after that second boyfriend and I broke up, I kind of went into this really dark time, and kind of, worldly exploration of relationships, I suppose. So I guess that's the nicest way to put it. And but during that time, God put another friend in my life that was kind of like an anchor, always talking about, church theology with me. We were always having debates, or trying to debate with our priests, or, and we would work out together and have these really theological, philosophical talks and things like that. And so even though I was having all these worldly experiences and that were not good, were not healthy, there was still this pull back. But the same friend, so around this time too, I was starting to kind of I was kind of starting to date this another friend from our church. We had only gone on 1 or 2 dates, and then there was a Christmas party, and I brought this friend, who's a guy, to the party because he needed a ride. Well, the guy I had gone on some dates with, I guess, saw me bring him and was acting really weird the whole time, and I didn't understand. And my friend was like, "It's because you brought me to the party." And I was like, "Well, that's silly. Like, I grew up with brothers. A lot of my friends are guys. He should know this and just be like, not let it bother him." He's like, "Oh, Stacy." he's like, "You're never patient enough to be in a real relationship." These were like the words he said to me. And he was like, "You're always, off or whatever." And that really stuck with me. And what's funny is the guy I had gone on a couple dates with, there was this other guy that he was a freshman, and he had been hanging out with us, and I thought he was kind of weird. And I was like, "Man, this kid, he's so weird." He's always talking about conspiracy theories with this other friend. This ended up being my husband.
Wait. He's still talking about conspiracy theories.
Yeah. So anyway, I had been, that's how I met my husband, but like he was just this like guy who he was friends with some of my friends, but he's a lot younger than me. My husband's 4.5 years younger than I am.
That's not a lot.
So but when you're a senior or super senior in college and he's a freshman, it seems a little like you're like
Right in the cradle.
So that year, I also ended up doing my student teaching in Costa Rica. So I left the country, which is also funny if you've heard our other episode. Where Annie talks about she had made a pact with a friend about not dating. Well, the friend she made a pact with started dating my friend during this time.
Oh my gosh. They knew each other in college.
So it's kind of funny that both of our friends are involved kind of in this certain story, because this friend that ends up marrying the friend that Annie made her pact with, and my husband moved in with him. So like, since him and I have been such good friends, I start seeing Andy a lot. And so I'm just kind of like, okay. And
this is after you got back from
Costa Rica. I get back from Costa Rica. They're living together. There's several guys in the house. There's my now husband, this another friend, and a guy that used to be in my choir because I was a choir director at the church. And there was a guy that was in my choir, and then Andy's brother and another guy. They all lived in one house together, and they called their house the Alpha Omega House because they all went to our church together, and so they were the Catholic fraternity, the unofficial Catholic fraternity,
public schools.
So my husband starts living with my friend, and I come back from Costa Rica, and my best friend that I've had since 5th grade moved to Texas, and this really close friend that had been my anchor during this really dark time had moved out of country to go teach English out of country. And so I'm hanging out with this other good friend of mine a lot more because they're the 3 people I hung out with all the time. And then my other best friend, she was married. So everybody was grown up and moved away, and here I am still with some of my college friends. And so I start seeing Andy more and more. Well, I finally, I started noticing that there was something there, and I was thinking back to what my other friend had said about me being patient with relationships. And I was like, well, I don't even know if I could, here I thought he was this weird person, this weird kid last year. And now I think, maybe we could have something, but we're always with a group of people. I didn't know if I could actually hold up a conversation with him if we were just by ourselves.
Because you didn't know any conspiracy theories?
Yeah, right.
You're not well versed in the jargon.
Yeah, right.
Did you have to study first?
No. He's a musician, and I'm a musician, so
that
helped. So I invited him to a bluegrass festival.
Smart.
Did you wear foil hats?
No. But we went to the Bluegrass Festival together, and we had a lovely evening. And what was also funny is that was the Friday of a weekend that we were going with our friends on a fall break trip down to Corpus Christi. And so we go to Bluegrass Festival. Then we go, our church at the time had a all-night adoration called Jericho Siege. And so we went to Jericho Siege. And then we went down to Corpus Christi for the weekend with all of our friends. And so that was just kind of our, like, I always call it our unofficial first date. But then he invited me 2 weeks later to a thing that his boss was putting on at their house, an Oktoberfest party. So he invited me to that. And they're all Catholic. And so, like, our priest was there, and we're listening to some more bluegrass music because at an Oktoberfest party, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, right. So
interesting matchup.
Yeah. So it was a nice evening. Then we go back afterwards.
Is it Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's Oklahoma Oktoberfest. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, so stereotypical.
And then there's a mom of another priest friend of mine that's there. He wasn't a priest at the time, but it was like she was at the party, and so yeah, it was a fun party. But yeah, and then so then we went back to his place to just kind of hang out, and he kissed me for the first time, and we've been together ever since. Well, then a year later, on our anniversary of our first kiss, he took me out to dinner, and I feel like we went somewhere else, but I don't remember that part. And then he asked if I wanted to walk around the lake, and we walked around the whole lake, and then he was kind of like, oh, let's go over here and look at the stars, because our anniversary dinner was actually the day before our actual anniversary. Well, he apparently had planned to propose to me on our anniversary, so he was waiting for midnight to ask me to marry him. And so he was like, hey, okay, I have a blanket in the back. You want to sit over here and look at the stars by the lake? And I was like,
Were
sure.
you suspicious at all?
No. Well, what's funny is a couple of days before that, our youth minister at the church had asked me, do you think he's going to propose? And I laughed at her because my previous 2 relationships have been 2 years long, each. And here we'd only been together for a year. I was
so
like,
you were like, no way.
Yeah, I was like, no.
Way too early.
Yeah, it's way too early. And so, we're just sitting there, and then he's like, okay, I'm about ready to go. Are you ready to go? And I was like, sure. And he got up, and then he helped me up, and then went down on one knee and proposed. And what's funny is my kids and I and some friends were just at that same lake today. I was like, my husband proposed to me right there 17 years ago. So,
my husband proposed has been torn down.
Oh.
It was St. John.
Look, there you go.
They built a much prettier church, so it's okay.
Yeah. But so then we had. Most people, I guess, think it's a little weird, but then we had a 2-year engagement because we both wanted. I had started my master's, and he was still working on his bachelor's. And we were both set to graduate at the same time with both of those things. Mm-hmm. So we waited till he finished school, and then that same year that I finished my master's and he finished his bachelor's, we got married that same year. And so it's just kind of interesting, the whole like progression of yes, I had these other relationships, but they brought me closer to the church and things like that, which is where I actually met my husband, was through the church family. Mm-hmm. And because really that first boyfriend I had, I wasn't very involved in the church. Mm-hmm. But also that same year, I had a friend who's the choir director of a local church here now, invite me to join the choir there. And I ended up taking that position from them when they graduated. And those same friends are the what do we call it?
Family.
The family that we've had for years. They're our kids' godparents, and we're their kids' godparents, and it's just like all these people that we met in that whole like little time span have just stayed in our lives. It's been really amazing. And one of the things that really struck me with my husband and his family was that they're farmers, and they make it a bit like, I think one of the things was like they really make a huge point of not working on Sundays. And that hadn't ever been like a thing in my house. Like, we would go to church every Sunday, but then my dad would be in a shop working on something for a customer or something, or working on our house, because the weekends were the only time he had for working on things at our house. So this whole like even during harvest time, They might still do harvest on a Sunday, but church is always like you go to church first, and we have breakfast together, and then it's out to the fields. And then if it's not harvest time, it's all the whole day is a family day or a rest day, or everybody's taking a nap, or playing cards together or whatever. And I always really liked that. But I think one of the first things that told me that he might be the one is we'd only been dating about 2 months, and I took a picture, and he blew it up and actually has it in his office here at home. But there's a picture that I had gone out to the farm for New Year's that year. I actually wasn't going to go out there, and then I hung out with my friends, and I was like, I really think I should go out there. And so I drove out there trying to find this place. It was the first time I'd ever been to his family farm, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and they don't know the street names around them. It's like, this is the blah, blah, blah blacktop, and this is the blah, blah, blah blacktop. I'm just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was lucky I found this place. So I found it, and we rung in the New Year together, and the next morning we go for a walk, and we're over by the old barn that's on the property, and I take this picture. And one of the things a previous boyfriend had said to me is, I wish I loved you as much as you love me. That was how they broke up with me. It was like, they're like, they're trying to say, like, I don't see us going any further than this. And they were trying to be nice about it, but it was just like, this is one of those things that just stuck with me. But in that picture, the way Andy is looking at me is like, you could see that love. And it was like, huh. And so that was kind of one of those first, like, the next year I still wasn't thinking that we were going to get married. But it was like, that was one of my first indicators that, like, he looks at me the way that I've felt about others. And so, like, it's like,
Finally, it's reciprocal.
Yeah. So there's that, the whole, it's coming from both sides, if that makes any sense. And it was just really, I don't know how much more of the story there is. So I think that's weird kid to my husband, like, but yeah, but that whole like devotion to Sundays and he even to this day, there's been times where I've done it with him, but when he comes home from Sunday Mass, he goes up and says a rosary. There's been times where it's been a family rosary or it's just been me and him, but he always, regardless of what the tides of our family are, has gone up after Mass and said a rosary. And even though, like, there's been times where he may have questioned some of things about church and things like that, or why a certain priest would do this, or why the church's stance is this on this, he's never wavered in that's never made him decide to not stop being Catholic or to go somewhere else. Or
he loves God through the questions.
Yes.
Even though he has. And that's really beautiful. It's very beautiful. Love that.
So if I was to give any advice like the other ladies did, it would be that. Find somebody who, even within struggles, they still find time for God or turn to God, even are persistent in their pursuit of God.
And as always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Join us again in 2 weeks.
Until then, may God bless you and may Mary accompany you.
Coffee and Catholics is a proud partner of the SmartCatholics Podcast Network. Find new shows to love, meet like-minded Catholics, and join the community at smartcatholics.com.